All right, we're good.
We live?
We're live.
Okay, Monochrome Mondays, everyone. Welcome back. Jonathan, how's your week?
Twas good. Twas good.
Good week. Mine was kind of stressful. Had a lot of shit going on, chasing clients. And had a family shoot yesterday. It went pretty well.
I saw the pictures.
You see the pictures on Instagram. Nothing groundbreaking, but yeah, I felt always around this time, I always feel a little bit scatterbrained, even though the majority of my editing is pretty much done from last year. I still feel like, I plan for these big gaps in the schedule, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this stuff off, and then I say yes to everything that comes along. So I never get to fully recharge. So we'll see how February and March goes. February I do have a couple things, but it's much less busy than January. And then March I have nothing. So we'll see if I can actually stick to that.
Learning to say no was one of my New Year's goals. Learn to say no to things, and I've already said yes to things that I already regret. Already.
It's the life of a business owner, self-employed, man. You can't say no to anything. It fucking sucks, but it's the way it is,
Yeah.
But so today, I wanted to keep it more targeted for our conversation. We're going to be talking about focal lengths, lenses, going into what we've learned about different focal lengths, our kits, our gear, and just how it's evolved over the years, and the strengths and drawbacks of certain focal lengths that seem to be kind of like a staple in a lot of people's, gear bags and all that. I feel like the thing about lenses is a lot of people have a boilerplate understanding of their lenses and their focal lengths. Okay. When in reality, once you've been doing it for a long time, you need to understand that focal lengths are purposeful. Every single focal length has a purpose. Okay. And it's not just there's a wide area and then there's a portrait area.
Right.
There's even down to the millimeter. Okay. There's a purpose for these things. And so, I can kick it off, but did you have something you want to say?
Just reminiscing. There was a music video shoot I was on years ago, and we had got a permit to shoot in these abandoned mental asylums up in the North Shore. And it was a creepy style video, obviously, and there was a spider that was crawling on this chair, and I was like, oh, give me the 85. And the kid was like, just get closer. I was like, that's not how this works. And he was actually the one who owned the gear that we were renting for the shoot. Yeah. He owned the cine lenses. And he was like, just get closer. I was like, I had the 24 on. That's not how this works, right. So that's just when you said people just don't understand. This guy
get close to the spider, you get
tens of
away.
thousands of gear, worth of gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And didn't know what he was doing.
That's what I mean. And so one of the things I am grateful for is the progress of my business. It's been very incremental. So I've never had a huge windfall of money where I can go out and just buy everything.
Right.
I've always had to piece my gear together and lens by lens by lens.
Same.
And so the good thing about that is I've really had to, if I buy something, it's been super intentional. I've had to learn it like the back of my hand and really understand it.
Yep.
Before I added something else.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time with it rather than just buying.
Exactly.
Buying everything, yeah.
Exactly. And you really, really do. That's such a great point because you really do need to spend a lot of time with a certain focal length before you understand its blueprint and how it's supposed to be used. So when I first started, I had the whole wide range of 1.8, 1.4 lenses.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the 35, 50,
yep.
85 were pretty much what I used mostly. And I got the prime lenses because I wanted to shoot wide open, okay? Because I thought blowing everything out, but then also if I'm in dark places, I can let as much light in as possible, right? So I was thinking about it from more of a perspective of what the character of the lens was and how much light it could let in rather than what that actual focal length was doing to my photos, okay? So as things progressed, I did add I added a 105 for a little bit. I had a 135. I had a 70 to 200 also. And those were 6 months. I would use those, not nearly enough time to really get into it and understand the focal lengths, but I started to add them. And then after I kind of like had a taste of all the primes, I started reducing. So fast forward to today, which for 99% of my work, it's one body and the 24 to 70.
Right.
Okay. And so like I always thought that the 24 to 70 was, it's not a professional lens, it's 2.8. Can't go to 1.2. You know what I mean? Now I've understood that there's a relationship to focal length and aperture. Okay. And not just shooting everything wide open. And also, in terms of the light gathering, the new bodies, those wide open lenses really aren't even like a 1.2 lens. You don't need it.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with the 85 1.2, the Canon 85.
You don't need it, dude. And not only is it a huge drawback because it's fucking huge, but you don't need a 1.2 lens. That 1.2 lenses were useful when you were like shooting film back in the day, or like these early DSLR cameras where you go above, 800 ISO and the whole thing just starts to fall apart, and then there's no really good denoising software.
Right.
Nowadays, it's the opposite, dude. You can shoot at 8,000 ISO, run it through some denoise software, and it looks basically like if you shot it at like ISO 500.
Right.
Okay. So, and there's ways to, you lose some of the texture in the skin when you run it through denoise software, but there's ways to add it back. It's totally fine now. So, I'm using a 24 to 70. Now, first of all, I do want to say that the iPhone, your regular iPhone camera is a 28 millimeter lens. Okay, so that's what people are pretty much noticing all the time. Okay, that people are so tuned to that.
They say that's like almost as close as you can get to like your actual vision.
I think isn't it a 50?
No, I think it's I think it's somewhere
50
between
or 35.
28 and.
Is it? I don't know.
Either way. Well, I'm sure people say everything.
Well, now, but it doesn't even matter now because people are so used to looking at photos and seeing that 28 millimeter like focal length because it's from iPhone. Now, like a lot of times, if I'm going for that kind of like, if I'm doing like an engagement shoot or a family shoot or something like that, a lot of times I'll just jack it to 28 millimeter on the zoom lens, because I know that it's going to be a familiar focal length for like everyday type of stuff.
Right.
Because of the iPhone. Okay, so like focal lengths now have become more intentional. And wide open apertures have become way more intentional about like what I'm trying to say in the photo. So like I rarely will use like a 1.8 or a 1.4 lens, prime lens nowadays. And if I do, it's just an ingredient to get that like blown out look in the background where it's super isolation. Like that's what I'm going for, is an isolation type of picture. It's a pre-thought out composition rather than I just need to gather as much light as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I spend a lot of time with the 1.2, the 85 1.2 shooting like dark nightclubs because I thought I really need, and I probably did back then because I was shooting on a DSLR. But I was missing 9 out of 10 shots because if I was going for that sharp look, I was missing almost everything. You'd get lucky because it's so shallow.
We're using direct flash.
Yeah, sometimes, but no, sometimes I wouldn't use flash. Most of the time, I wouldn't use flash at all because
really?
It's like most of my nightclub
just
stuff
going off
I didn't.
stage lights and things?
Yeah, exactly. The lighting's changing, so I'm shooting burst in the crowd, or taking 20 portraits of the same people, just trying to get one. But I stopped doing that a long time ago. I started realizing how easy it was to just isolate whatever it was I was trying to get people to look at. And then, when I bought that, now I shoot a lot of wide stuff for like real estate, but just having that wide lens on my camera made me look at things different. Then I bought the Leica, and it's a fixed 28, so like I carry that around all the time. Back to your 28 point. So yeah, I mean, I've really grown to like the wide shots, but I went through a phase like that too.
I think everybody does because like, the thing about wide shots and, learning how to use like a 24 or 28, going wider than 35, it's so important to becoming a good photographer because you understand that like a wide shot takes pre-thought out like understanding of your surroundings and like what you're going for.
Takes a lot more intention.
It takes a lot more attention. Like you can't shoot. You can shoot just a wide shot, but chances are, if you just shoot a wide shot, it's going to be distracting as hell. And no one's going to understand where to look in the photo because everything's more in focus. Obviously, it's wide, so you're getting more in it. When it's super easy, just take an 85 or a 105 or a 7200 zoom in on something, isolate it. It removes all ambiguity from the photo. Like I know if I'm looking at one of those photos, I know exactly what I'm supposed to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Versus a 28 or a 24, like everything has got to be in a certain place. Like you have to understand the lines you have in the building. You have to understand the landscape. You have to understand like how many people there are there. Like, and you have to understand where people's eyes naturally drift in that composition.
Right. And where that lighting is falling. If it's, if you're not lighting it yourself, if you're, a wedding or street or whatever it is, like you got to really be a lot more aware of where those shadows fall, where that patch of light is, and things like that, because that's going to tell people where to look. With, like you said, to your point, just with a wide shot, if everything's in focus, everything's wide, and there's a whole bunch of information that isn't relative to your subject, it's going to confuse the hell out of people.
Yep.
With a 70 to 200 or something, you just punch in sharp photo of what it is. There's no questions. Not very interesting.
Like,
but
oh, they want me to look at that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons. I used to love shooting on like a 300 mil at a concert from far away, because you could just no one gets to feel that up close to the artist usually. It's like not everyone gets front row tickets, but seeing those tight shots of like an artist in their moment on stage, I really liked, to the contrary of the wide shot, because
I agree. And I still love those shots.
Yeah.
I still love those. But the thing is like that, in my opinion, the wide shot should be the base in a gallery. And then those really punched in, zoomed in shots, fall off background, really, really focused in on a subject. Those things should be ingredients to enhance or tell the story of what the wide shot is creating.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like
you're looking at it like through a set, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I like to look at things too.
So too many people just want to jump to the end, those long focal lengths, because it's easy to kind of just like, make a little feel of it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can make this blurry or whatever, and I can punch out the background. So it's like, I can make this a little bit moody. But the thing is like, you're not gathering any context with that. Those things, like a wide shot gathers context, and then a zoomed in long focal length shot gives the second layer of context of individual subjects in that in that composition. Right.
It's the same with a movie or filmmaking or everything that I do, with video stuff. Like, you've got an establishing shot. A lot of times these, cliche, all these wedding videos open with a drone shot of the place.
Every time.
Guilty myself, but like
there's six shots though.
Yeah. So yeah, you establishing shot, or if you're trying to be more mysterious, you start tight, and then people are like, what am I looking at? And then you go to an establishing shot. But it's the same principle is what you're saying.
Yeah. So when I was shooting on a 35 and an 85, even a 35, like, you can get context for sure, because it's technically a wide lens, but even that, you're still isolating within a wide shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still zoomed in enough. That's pushing it, yeah. It's still zoomed in enough that there's something that's obvious that you're focusing on, rather than doing it with the composition. So if everything's in focus, if you're shooting deep apertures, right? I mean, a lot of times now I'm at like f5.6.
I've been shooting a lot during the day at f8 with just a 28 f8, like everything in focus, and challenging myself just to try to make a good image, because it's not easy.
It's not easy, man. When everything is in focus, you really have to understand what's going on. You have to understand the depth. You have to understand the environment and look at lines, okay? And really where the light's coming from, like you said. But I've been shooting a lot f5.6, f8, sometimes all the way down to like f17, backlit portraits, wide, deep aperture with direct flash. Okay, yeah. So what that does, right, is it's giving me, actually, can you pull up my Instagram?
That was with the 300. I was going to show you that, but give me a second. What do you, let me go to yours.
Go to my Instagram here. I want to show these guys a shot. Okay, so go to that green one right there with the bride and the groom right there. Okay, scroll through here.
Let me pull up so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, funny. This is like frozen again. I gotta fix that.
This will give a good representation. Keep sliding until you see more portraits. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, shit. Ah, fuck.
What, you delete it?
I took it out. I took it out of the set.
All right, hold on 1 second, because I gotta fix this browser. Why is this still showing? It's like showing
What, it froze on my page?
It froze on mine for some reason. There we go. All better. Yeah, so Will deleted the photo that he wanted to show
I
us.
deleted from the slide. But, okay, so what I wanted to say, though, is this wedding, I shot a lot of deep aperture with this. On that whole portrait set, it was super backlit. The sun was really low. I was at f11 or I think I was even deeper than f11, but I think I was on average f11, right? Had it backlit. And then what I did is I threw direct flash on them, okay? And what it does is it really, obviously you get more in focus, but it completely changes the nature of the sunlight, okay? So rays become more blocky,
Right.
rather than like just a blob of like misty light, okay? And you can use those rays from the sun that are now more defined to create depth in the photo.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you have the sun kind of off to the side, you have light streaking in now. So it kind of looks like it's going across them, and you can kind of like put your hand into the image.
Right.
And then lighting them from on the face with the direct flash. And it completely changed the nature of the photo and the look of the photo.
Right.
To something different that people just aren't used to seeing, because everybody shoots wide open. Even if they're on a 2.8, they're still shooting wide open. It's going to still give it like a blurry type look.
Yeah, it's crazy to me.
So what I'm saying is like the reason I did that though is intentional, because like I understand that when I stop down my aperture, things become more in focus, the light rays become more defined, and then I can use that to create depth, because I was in an open field for those photos. And so there was not really any like atmosphere lines that I could use. So the photos, if I shoot wide open, everything's gonna be kind of flat.
Right.
Like there's not gonna be a dimension in the photo really. So I was like, okay, now I want to try and, create some lines that look like the image, you could reach into it,
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying is like, for me, the best piece of advice in terms of focal length is even if you have a million different lenses, you need to put them all aside and one by one focus in and drill down. However fast you learn, for me, it takes like a solid year of shooting, like all the time with a specific focal length to learn it. Because the focal lengths that you use, they really should be like second nature. Like, oh, I want to get this type of look in my head. Okay, I know I need this focal length for that.
Yep.
And fuck aperture now. Like, you should never have to think, oh, I'm not going to be able to get enough light in. Like, if you feel like there's not enough light, you should know how to add light, your own light, or like you should be comfortable, jacking up your ISO to a reasonable amount.
Right.
And learning how to remove that noise and then adding back in skin texture. Like, that's just advanced photography. You know what I mean? If you're a high level photographer nowadays, like you should know how to do those techniques.
Right. Yeah. So with what I do, most of what I do, I have to make less decisions. I know if I'm shooting like tomorrow, I got this shoot for a print company. They're rebranding their website. So I got to do, 10 to 20 photos of each of their departments, and then some group shots, some product shots, and like embroidery and things like that. So I know, like, I want that macro shot with the needle, the embroidery shot. I know I need that for the video for their website. I know, like, because we're doing videos for each subject that they do, right? So like, I know going in where, like, what lenses I need to bring. I know I'm going to go with the 100 macro. I know I'm going to go with, certain. So it's like with weddings, like, things change. You know what I mean? Like, you're on a wedding and you're like, oh shit, like, this is beautiful. I wasn't expecting this. Now I'm going wide. So like with me, it's less of a decision. It's more of a forethought.
It's a forethought. So like, what is your aperture going to be at? Like, what aperture is going to be shooting at for a commercial shoot like that?
Well, we're doing portraits too, but I'd like. So video, I'm shooting video mostly. I'm also doing a lot of photos too, but it's predominantly video. I'll be shooting. I mean, it really depends. I'm going to bring some lights. I don't know what their setup is yet, but probably as high as I can be, or as low. What the deep, high in the number, deep, yes, yeah. As open, yeah. So, I mean, when you watch movies, they're never filmed at 2.8. It's like always at least 4. It's
exactly.
You don't want you lose too much with that, and things just look better when everything's in focus. Not everything, obviously. For some cinematic degree, you want some depth, but for something like this, which is like a web-based videos where that people just need to know what their services are and that they do them. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? So,
but when you're going, that's the thing though, is like, understanding, like, so one thing that really got me into looking at not just shooting everything wide open, because it took me a good 5 years. Like first 5 years, I was shooting everything was wide open. If I was using a 1.4 lens, it was 1.4. I shot with the 50 1.2 for a while. Like those 2 seasons, I don't think I ever touched my aperture. It was always at 1.2.
And your lens isn't as sharp when it's wide open either.
Even with these new lenses, you know what I mean? Like the new Nikon 1.2 line of lenses, they're fucking sharp at 1.2. They really are. But it's just everything, it was so isolated. It just wasn't a contextual thing.
Right.
Each photo, like there was a story there when you look at the gallery, but it was because there's 900 images in the gallery. Yeah. Each photo was its own subject.
Right.
And so what movie I saw was the Citizen Kane, Orson Welles.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, dude, bro, you need to see that, man. Like that is insane use of. You heard the term deep focus?
Yes.
Okay, so his deep focus was absolutely incredible. The whole thing was shot at like f/22, okay? And obviously incredible. It was 1930s, I think the movie was. So it was like incredible amounts of light were brought in, But the layering in the composition and everything in focus, razor sharp in focus, and then every element placed in a position that made sense. And all, like if you had 3 people in the frame, you know exactly what to look at first, and that person led you to the next person, and then the second person led you to the third, and like everything was so intentional, and the shots were so like mind-blowingly like interesting.
Right.
I was like, holy shit, man. And so like first thing I did was like get a split field diopter so I could try and get like the foreground in focus and the background, you know what I mean? But then there's like this weird line in the middle, and then I just started naturally stopping down my aperture and then using the light that was coming in a way where I could, light both things at the same time, but then, with deep apertures. And my photos got so much more interesting, dude. Yeah. So much more interesting. And then my gallery started switching from, in order to get the whole story, you had to look at every 900 photo, to in each photo, there's complementing elements and there's different things telling the story. And so like, I think that is just so incredibly important for people to understand. That's like, you need to start shooting wide, and you need to start stopping down aperture, getting more things in focus, and then bringing in light where you need it, or understanding if you're going to, have a deep aperture shot, putting your subjects in the light that's already there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I used to have this obsession with everything had to be lit. Like everything's got to be lit. I got, and finally I eventually was just like, let things be as moody as they are. Like if there's not that much light there, like that's what you're seeing. And that's why it's worth picking up a camera. You know what I mean? That's why you found it interesting in the first place. So I used to go, and then I'm like, this looks cool. And then I'm go fill in some shadow. And then I'm like, I just destroyed what I thought looked cool initially. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
like let things be moody. If it's dark, that might be cool. Like it depends what you're shooting, obviously. But if I'm shooting, I'm talking just for myself, just walking around with the camera. Like I started letting things be and let things be.
Yeah, definitely. Like letting shadows.
A noisy
fall.
shot's better than no shot.
Right, and letting shadows fall where they are. You know what I mean? Working that into your composition and just not changing the colors of the scene too much for sure. But I just think that like people have this thing where they think they need to acquire like every fucking lens and every piece of gear when they haven't even learned. I mean, dude, I shot a whole wedding with a 50 one time. Mm-hmm. A whole wedding. Yeah. It was just one 50 millimeter lens. You can get it done, dude, with very limited amounts of gear. Yeah. And so the strength really is not in the quantity of what you have, but it's the precision of your understanding of that tool,
That's it. They are all just tools. And if you develop a style that only requires a certain amount of tools, like, you shoot on the 20, like you said, on the 24 to 70 now, almost only. So if that's the only tool you need, let it, so be it.
Exactly, dude. And it's honestly it served me well because the thing is those the focal lengths that it covers 24 to 70 mil. Like, dude, you have 24, 28, 30, 40. You know what I mean? 35. Like you have 50. You
Yeah.
got a 70. Like you have everything you need to punch in when you need to. Like 70, okay, it's not the same as a 200 for sure, but I don't need the 200 because the 200 is it's all that is an ingredient. Like if I need a real punched in shot, I would grab that. But how many times am I gonna? Maybe 5 shots in the gallery.
Right.
So am I gonna carry around like this extra stuff rather than looking? How do I make it more isolated at 70 and learning that focal length? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what I did was like I went through that whole prime setup first, thinking that
Spent a shit ton of money.
spent a shit ton of money, then lost it all because I sell the thing back on eBay for fucking half of what I paid for it. You know what I mean? So it's like it was like my tuition.
Right.
You know, when it all really just condensed down to that one focal length or one range of focal lengths, 24 to 70, and one lens.
I will say there's something awesome about being in the studio setting and having it's just everything there, though. Because in a wedding
Different.
you're carrying shit around, whatever, but having it just all in a case, like right there, is like,
Well, the cool thing about that, right, is that kind of goes back into what we were talking about understanding,
Yeah,
like
right.
your tool. And in a studio, you have infinite time, infinite ability to kind of just slow things down, and then just be like, okay, like what ingredient do I want this next block of shots, these next 100 shots? How do I want them to feel? Oh, really intimate, close up, moody. Okay, let's get the 135 for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I want to grab some energetic, really atmospheric stuff. Okay, all these are gonna be shot at 20.
right.
And so that's the next level in skill is like stepping up to where you're understanding the mood is the driver, and then how do I use my tools to get towards that? Okay, I need this certain focal length.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when your photography really starts to get good. And then I think once the next level is once you understand the focal lengths, then understanding your aperture and how you can use deep apertures versus wide apertures in order to get what you want. So you have those different layers. It's like you understand light first and composition, or I guess in my case, working with people.
Right.
And then you start to understand the focal lengths. And then you start to understand deep apertures versus open apertures. And then you start to really become a professional that can tell a super in-depth story with that gallery.
Right.
Rather than just a bunch of fucking photos that are, bokeh, razor sharp depth of field, that are just just individual shots isolated. So perfect example, right? I just watched one of my buddies' wedding videos. He got married on the Amalfi Coast, dude, in Italy. It was absolutely fucking gorgeous, dude. It was so beautiful. I watched his wedding video first, which was amazing. And I was like, dude, these shots are incredible, like off this wedding video. Let me see the gallery. It's the same company that did photo and video over there in Italy. And the photos were not even fucking just a slice of it as good as the video.
Mm-hmm.
Because the video had all the shit in focus, dude. Whoever was shooting those photos shot everything wide open and blew everything out.
Yeah, and the beauty was in like the landscapes and the whole place, right?
Exactly, and how you place these people in the landscapes.
Right.
And so, like, I was looking at the shots, and every single one was an isolated shot of them or family or something like that. There was not a lot of context. And so it was just fucking, I couldn't believe it, and it just really showed me that, like, okay, like, this is a photographer who can just show up there and just document something good enough, I guess. This is not a photographer who can tell a story.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I get what you're saying. You spend when you get to a place like that and you'd look out at the landscape and everything else, what on earth is telling you to shoot wide open? You know what I mean? Like, you have all the light, you've got this beautiful coast, that's why they chose there to get married. Exactly. Right? Like, it's kind of funky to be.
Exactly. It's so fucking important, man. Like, shooting wide open is really not, it should not be your first choice. It should never be your first choice, honestly. your first choice should be based off of you stepping on site to where you're going to be shooting and looking at the landscape. That's your first choice, and then deciding what your aperture is going to be based off of the landscape and the light there.
Right.
That's like so key. And when I was beginning in photography, I never went into it like that, thinking about aperture first. Or I'd say aperture and focal length first.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that is like, so many photographers, dude, do not think like that.
Right.
They shoot on manual, but their aperture wheel never really gets touched. And it's always kind of wide open, and they do that based off of light, you know, and keeping ISOs low. It's the wrong mentality, man.
Yeah, you can get trapped in that for sure.
Super easy.
Somebody asked, what kind of light do you use? I'm assuming they meant when you were talking about either direct flash or filling in. You know,
Yeah, it's a good question. So for weddings, I use on-camera flash a lot. Okay, so I have my on-camera flash, but I also use I take it off, so I have a trigger on there, and then I have a handheld flash. Most of the day, I'm either on camera or I have a trigger on. Hey, Toby, my dog's right here. I have a trigger on the top, and then a flash in my hand, and then I have a little belt clip that has a thing for on the flash, so I can just like, you know, put it on and off my belt, which is super. It's a spider holster thing, and then for the reception,
so just the speed light.
the speed light.
Yeah. So
Godox.
it doesn't matter really what brand. Yeah, just the speed.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess that's what they were asking. A speed light, and then the reception, you do light.
Reception, I light with continuous lights.
Yep.
Okay, and so the reason why I do this with continuous, and this is a big debate in terms of in the wedding industry here. A lot of people say that you shouldn't use continuous lights because they fuck with the crowd or whatever, or the guests. Okay, that might be true in some scenarios, but a couple reasons, right, why it's good is because your photos are going to look similar to the video. Okay, it's going to be lit kind of the same way. So when they get their video back in the reception, their photos are going to fit in them, because videographers fucking love me on site because I have these continuous lights and I know how to, you know, point it. So a key light, backlight, all that makes it look really nice. So you get congruency with the photos in the video. Also, too, the couples actually really like it when they're out there on like the dance floor, because they feel like they're in like a movie or something. You know what I mean? You have spotlights on them. It looks really fucking nice, right? And so, yes, there are certain venues where the light kind of gets into some people's faces, you know, a couple of the tables or whatever, just by the nature. I'd say most of the weddings, that's not a problem. But it's just so much, it's such a better look, and the clients actually love the feel of them having light on them. And so I use aperture 60Xs for those, which are great because they're color temperature balanced too. I can, you know, color temp balance for whatever lights are in the room, and I can control it off my phone. They're expensive lights. They were like $450 a piece, but I use two of them, backlight and a key light. And then sometimes I will add my direct flash on top just as a fill. If the way everything's angled, if there's like there's a dark spot when they turn or something like that, sometimes like I'll throw on my flash just to have a little bit of fill. But the majority of it in a reception is a backlight and a key light with an aperture 60X. I angle it for the entrance, the first dances, parent dances, all that, and then I'll switch the orientation of them usually for the speeches. So that's really what I use in the reception. But during the day, excuse me, Toby, go lay down. My dog's being fucking annoying. Go lay down, boy. So what I'll normally do is I'll always have that flash like on me though, like during the day, and it's not on all the time, but I always have it just in case, like, okay, it's too dark in here, or I need some angled light or something like that.
Better be caught with it than without it, right?
100%. And also too, what I will say, what I'm really good at with speed lights now is I'm really good at looking at a room before I turn on my flash, looking at where I can bounce light into their faces. Okay? So I'm not just throwing it right at them first. Sometimes I do, but what I'm trying to do first is I'm looking at the ceilings and the walls and thinking about, like, how can I'm constantly turning my flash.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of dude, It's another thing. I don't want to just dog on other photographers, but it's like a lot of times, dude, photographers are just fucking pointing it straight up or pointing it at them.
Yeah.
And that's all they're doing. Like, I can't imagine not turning my flashlight constantly.
Yeah. No,
You know?
I'm a
Because
nutcase.
what
Yeah.
you need to do, and this is for people out there who are listening or aren't like totally versed on flash, speed lights yet. What you need to do is look at the direction of where the nose is and aim your flash wherever their nose is. So like if I'm standing to my left over here, right, and I'm pointing at I'm the subject, okay, my nose is facing this way. That means I need to bounce my flash off the wall right there so it comes back and hits him on the nose. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they were
you
to
want
turn
it, right.
this way, I need to bounce it off this wall and have it come back here.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and sometimes you
bounce
got lower ceilings than other venues, and white walls. Sometimes you don't have white walls, so every situation's a little bit different. Sometimes I see a lot of people just pointed straight up with a white card, just bouncing it straight at people, all, and then everything looks the same. But yeah, so the funny story is I was hanging out with the graphic designer who's also a video photo guy for this company I work with, and we're on a rooftop after a long day of shooting, and we're like having a beer, and this couple comes out, and this guy starts taking pictures of his girl like on the rooftop with this with the Eiffel Tower in the back and whatever, and it's nighttime. He's got the flash pointed up on a rooftop with point at nothing in the sky, no card, nothing to bounce it off at all. And I just looked at my buddy Darren, who's versed in that stuff too, and I was like, I kind of want to go help him, and then like
Never do that.
No,
Yeah.
Carrie was like, don't even get.
Don't even.
It was so
People
funny.
take huge offense to that.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was just. She probably owned the camera and told him to just take a
I
picture
mean,
of her.
you
But
do get a little slice of
I
life.
was gonna be nice about it. I wasn't gonna like.
Yeah,
what
of
I mean?
course. But people, even if you're the nicest, Toby, go lay down. Go in your bed. Go in your bed. Even if you're the nicest dude, people still get pissed off.
Right.
But you do get a little slice of light if it's just pointed straight up, like naturally, like, light goes really, if you have a flash.
Yeah, it doesn't go completely linear.
It doesn't go straight out. It goes kind of everywhere. You're getting a little bit, but not much. But as a photographer, if you have an on-camera flash, dude, you need to be turning that flash head all over the place as you're shooting. Like, you need to be bouncing light. As people are moving, you need to turn the flash head and understand the room and try and bounce it off something back into their face at an angle. It looks so much better.
Oh yeah, for sure. Somebody said, "What is a key light?" I'm a total noob or whatever when it comes to
great question.
Yeah, I mean, there's no wrong.
There's no
question.
wrong.
Key light's just your main light, your main light on the subject.
On the subject's face. So how I do my key lights is I'll do it normally not completely at them, but normally off to the side, so there's a little bit of shadow.
Yeah, like a 45.
Yeah, less than 45.
Yeah.
Honestly, like
The shadow's just going to give it depth. If you point it straight at them, you're going to get a hard shadow behind them, and you're going to get a very flat face. So
Flat
yeah,
face,
it's
yeah.
not as flattering as
Exactly.
having it off-centered.
So key light is the one that we're using, no matter what angle it is, but the one that we're using to put light on their face, and then the backlight is obviously the backlight, which is creating that depth of the image. Because if you just have a key
separating
light,
them from
the
whatever's behind them.
background. Yeah, so like if you just have a light going on their face and then it's dark in the back, it's not going to look, there's no depth to the image.
Right.
But if you have that light kind of lighting their hair or lighting up the back of the scene, all of a sudden it looks like you can reach into the photo.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard this saying a bunch of times, like when in doubt, just backlight. Like if you're just outside, it's a bright day in the middle of the day, and yeah, everything's kind of flat, and you don't have beautiful lighting. Like just use backlight. It always makes things more interesting than just shooting flat.
Right, and you know the reason why they say that is because there's two reasons. One, if you backlight somebody during the day, it's an easy out because then there's no uneven lighting on their face. All of a sudden, everything goes in shadow, so there's no spots of light. Okay, so you have that for backlight, but then also too, it gives a hair light, so it looks at least like the depth of the body.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like as deep as a human from the tip of their nose to the back of their head or the back of their back, you're gonna get that because you have a light hitting them on the back. Yeah, the face is not in light. Technically, it's gonna be in shadow, but you can add a fill light or you can do it, creatively, that element or
Right.
whatever.
So now we're talking about light. We were talking about focal lengths. Now we're talking about light. But I guess to mix the conversation we're having, like you you're shooting 24 to 70. That's why that flash in your hand, that speed light in your hand works. If you're shooting at a much, say an 85, that's not really gonna operate the same way. You can still throw light at them, but with the distance is creating a harsher light, and unless you're bouncing it, of course. But I find it awkward to be like shooting with a handheld flash if I'm shooting anything more so than like 35.
Exactly.
I like to be wide if I'm going to be doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I'm at 70, when I'm zoomed in 70, I'm rarely using flash in my hand.
Right. Maybe off camera flash somewhere else.
Exactly. Or I'm really using, it's either off camera flash or the continuous light in the reception, or I'm using natural light outside. If I'm using a flash outside, mixing in with natural light, I'm, like you said, I'd probably max 35 because I need to be close to that person, because I don't like shooting more than like 1/16th, because I shoot a lot, so I don't like to burn out my flash. You know what I mean? You really only have a limited number of shots if you're shooting at like half power.
Yeah.
Before the thing starts fucking overheating, and then every shot takes 15 seconds to recycle.
Yeah, or the battery's dying, same thing.
The Godox batteries are amazing. I don't think I've ever had a battery go dead.
Yeah, but if you used it all day, you would. You use it sporadically.
What I normally do is I'll just, if I have to shoot like at a higher power flash, I'll use it till it burns up, and then I'll just put it in my bag and grab another flash.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really kill the battery. I just stop using it when it starts to overheat, because it takes a long fucking time.
I do like the rechargeable batteries or the removable rechargeable batteries that the Godox V1 has, like over the AA's that my Canon used to take. I mean, there's pros and cons, but
the overheat protection has something to do with the light inside. It's not even just the battery.
Oh, you're talking about when it overheats. I was talking about when the battery drains and it takes forever to recycle.
Yeah,
we
I'm talking about when it overheats.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I rarely run into a situation where I'm draining my battery. I'm always overheating it first.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever done that.
Overheated?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever
you see
seen
how
that.
I shoot.
Yeah.
I shoot a shitload. I fucking blast my photos. So if I'm, portrait session, I have one pose, I'm taking 15 photos of that one pose, just for micro adjustments and stuff like that, because naturally at a wedding, dude, 3/4 of the photos, their face looks like they're making like, a face that's just not flattering.
Right.
So I've learned to overshoot in those situations, because I can set up for an amazing composition. There's nothing worse when you get those photos back, you're looking through them. Everything looks perfect. The light looks perfect. The background looks perfect.
But their mouth's wide open.
Worst face on. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's not something I'm not gonna go Photoshop somebody's face.
People are My buddy does, not for like wedding photography. He does it all the time as a joke, because he's just like always got an app that can make him thin and make this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it looks like real in 1-2 clicks, and I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
He's also not like a photographer. It's more just for humor.
Yeah. I just I think that, like, going back to what we're talking about with these focal lengths, man, I just do not be one of these photographers that relies on wide open apertures all the time and just boilerplate 1 or 2 lenses for everything. I said that, and this is, I'm going back, my earlier videos, I talked about like 35 and 85 is all you need for weddings.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long time ago. Okay. It's a long time. We live and we learn. Okay. I don't think that that's the best way to go about it nowadays. I think that like the best way to go about it is either a 24 to 70, so you're really learning, or your staple is your wide lens, which is like a 28 prime or a 24. I think a 28 prime is a good one to have if you want to shoot on primes. 28 prime is perfect for weddings. 24 works too, but I find that I'm a little bit more dialed in. I'm around 28 most of the time for wide shots. 28 to 30, around there. And then obviously when people get really close, then I'm going wide. But understanding how to compose things wide, and then not shooting wide open, stopping down your apertures, getting more things in focus. Fucking looks amazing, dude.
Yeah, it really does. There's a great photographer from the UK that I follow, that I've been following for a long time, and he's incredible, street photographer, but uses this technique that we're talking about just impeccably, where like shoots generally pretty wide, 28, sometimes 50, but that's mostly 28. but you could see the placement of the subject and the composition, how we were just talking about the way things are stacked and the leading lines, and just everything is always, it's like
So intentional.
yeah, it really is. And he recently started a YouTube channel, and I started watching it, and I'm like, it's nothing I didn't know. It's just how he thinks about it that I'm like, I never take my time with that. I should probably, take his advice and just like find a location, and then, like you said, then you place your subject, or in his case, you wait for the right subject to be in that place. But looking at a subject and waiting for them to get the right lighting is going to be impossible versus sitting in the right lighting and then waiting for a subject. But this isn't a street photography podcast, but
Well, dude,
it's very interesting to see how he uses light, and he's all black and white. So
okay, so is that Alan Scaler?
yeah,
he's amazing. So like, dude, this is what I'm talking about. And this is one piece of advice I've always given on this channel that has stayed consistent and will never change. Is doesn't matter if you're weddings, doesn't matter if you're street, whatever. You think of yourself first as a landscape photographer. When you walk into a new room, a new set, a new scene, wherever you're shooting, I'm a landscape photographer for the first 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whenever I show up, however much time I have to prepare. And I'm looking at everything in my environment and thinking, if there were no people in this shot, how can I get an interesting shot here?
right.
Okay?
So you become like a real estate photographer when you're in the hotel room. You become like a landscape photographer when you're outside. You become,
And then once I find that interesting composition, then it's like, okay, come over here, bride and groom. You guys stand right here.
right.
That's how I look.
And don't make that face.
And don't make that. Don't make any stupid. Put your tongue in your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, just think about it that way, rather than over obsessing with your posing and getting all fucked up. Or like, how am I going to work with these people? Put them aside for just a second and just absorb where you're at and what you're looking at in terms of things that are not alive or not your subject. Okay, how am I going to take a photo here that's interesting without anybody in it? And then once you have that locked in, then you put your people in it, and then that'll force you to shoot at deeper apertures too, because you're like, all right, frame this really good scene here.
I want people to see everything.
I want people to see it. I want it to be in focus. Okay, if I shoot at 1.2,
that's the cop out.
That's the
I didn't
cop-out.
do any other work, so let me just
dude, it's so
and
is,
it's
bro.
true, because it's like that the client isn't looking at it through, as long as they look good, it's cool with them most of the time. You're copping out. At least I do.
Well,
I know I'm copping out when I do that.
At higher, you're 100% right. It is the cop out just to blow.
I'm
everything out.
like they're gonna be happy with it. It's fine.
Right.
And then I'm like hurt, and then I'm living in regret. At 2 a.m. I'm like, why the fuck didn't I
missed that. I'm never gonna be back there.
Right.
So, but the thing is, dude, is as you get higher prices and more like legitimize your brand as a photographer, that shit doesn't fly anymore. Like, people spend a shitload of money to get married at these like amazing places. They want to see it.
Right.
They want it in focus, bro. Like, they want to see what it looked like to the eye. You know what I mean? Having somebody flew a drone over, they want to see the whole thing. You know what I mean?
There should be a healthy mix of all that stuff
That's
in
what
a
I mean.
gallery for sure.
That's what I mean, though. But then those longer focal lengths start to give that extra just ingredient. It's just a little spice on the main dish, which is the wide and the composition, everything working together.
And we've been like we haven't mentioned how you can still shoot like deep on a longer lens. Like it actually, in a lot of cases, it'll compress things if you want something across that river. You know what I mean? You want to see everything. You can still take both approaches, right? Like, you can still shoot deep, shoot like, for example, like I do a lot of, like I said, not real estate, but like construction, when they rebuild this and that. And if someone's got like shooting a deck really wide, like it looks like the middle of the grill on the deck's a mile away.
Yeah.
Whereas if I back up across the yard and I shoot at 85 and compress this, and I still shoot the entirety of the scene, like the whole outside of the home,
You're just further back.
but I compress the whole thing by zooming in, and then I still shoot deep. Now all of a sudden you can see all the details in things that are further away. So there's a healthy mix of longer lenses too, with the same sentiment of shooting deep, so people can still see things.
Dude, and this is what it goes back into, is understanding your focal lengths.
Right.
Not many people will understand that.
So sometimes I'm in the neighbor's yard, like shooting across the street, because I'm like shooting a big yard close at 24 just
Distorts
does, it doesn't look flattering when you can see every detail, and that's, I could find a better example than a home someone rebuilt, but
But dude, that's a perfect example. And one thing that people don't understand with their lenses
Right.
is like, okay, like if I shoot this super wide, is this composition gonna look way unnatural and fucked up, and I'm not going for that creatively?
Right.
You know, is this thing in the background gonna be way too far away because I'm so wide? You know, oh, I need to use a longer lens and get my, use my feet and get back and then stop down my apertures because I still want everything in focus, but I don't want everything super far away from me.
Right. So yeah, the compression is an important detail when you're talking about, the different focal lengths. Sometimes you really want that. Sometimes you definitely don't.
Yeah.
And same with the ultra wide. Sometimes you want that distortion. It looks sick when someone's really up close and it's a live moment or whatever, but you don't want to shoot family portraits with everyone on the edges friggin' distorted with huge feet and you know what I mean? Like, it's not the look.
Or like, whatever's in the background looks way too far away or something like that. It's all ingredients to learn. So like it goes back to the whole thing that I was saying since the beginning is like, dude, take your lenses and one by one learn what those focal lengths do at different like scenarios, people, fucking your backyard, your pets,
right?
Your kids running around. What does it do to the backgrounds? Is it too far away for certain things? Where's the sweet spot? Every single lens has like a really good sweet spot in terms of how far you should stand away from the subject.
Right.
Every
and they have a
lens
sweet
does.
spot with the aperture too, of where you're going to get the sharpest and least distortion of everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But just in terms of look, like the perfect look for this focal length is every single lens. Like for a 50, it's about like 6 feet away from the person. You should be standing. That's a really good like sweet spot for a 50. You know what I mean? And you got to know that, dude. Because if you're standing 12 feet away, it's not gonna look as good.
Right.
So intimate, dude. Like a carpenter knows his fucking nail gun. He knows his fucking hammer. You know what I mean? Like they know these things like the back of their hand, dude. Every single piece of it. As a photographer, same thing, dude. Same thing. And focal lengths are one of those things that were really that people ask me a lot, like how to like develop a style, like a certain style or whatever, signature style. In my opinion, focal lengths are the biggest way to do that. Understanding focal lengths.
It's funny you say that because I literally just said, oh, Alan shoots 28, like mostly. And I could see that in his work. And I've also listened to him to confirm that. But you can see it. And that's part of the style is like wide street photography that purely relies on the placement of those lights and shadows,
Yeah.
So he developed a style. Exactly. I'm just reiterating your point. I mean, you couldn't be more right. Like that is one way to really define it. And if you don't have a ton of money, it's a great way to define it because like you said at the beginning, like I learned the same way you did where I couldn't just go buy everything. So, I earned enough money. The first lens was the 24-70. And then, as I started to earn enough money off that, I would buy another one. And then it would be this new shiny thing. So I wouldn't take it off my camera.
Yeah.
And then I would learn that. And then eventually, I'd buy another one and it's same thing. So it was built in, forced like to spend time with these things because I didn't have another choice.
Exactly. So you drilled down on each piece of gear. But yeah, it's like I guarantee the reason why Alan Scaler like ended up with his style being defined by the 28 is because he probably tried every single focal length throughout his career in street photography and figured out how like that was what he intuitively knew how to stand at a certain distance from his subjects, how much is going to be in the photo, where the sweet spots was, and how he just knew at a certain focal length he can compose things like that.
It also is like his style of like shooting from the hip or like being very discreet. You've got more leeway if you're at 28 and you're at f8. You've got anything, depending on where you're focused, you could have anything from 5-6 feet in front of you and beyond in focus. So he doesn't have to worry about focus or autofocus or anything. He sees a flock of pigeons fly up and it's just like, from the hip or someone's walking by with a cool hat and it's understanding your focal, like what's in focus, how many, feet from the camera someone has to be to if I'm at, that's what those numbers on your lens are for. Right. So you can read that and not have to look through the viewfinder every time or rely on autofocus or anything like that. So
yeah. and that just goes in.
It's funny we're even saying that. That's what the numbers on the lens are for. Like,
well, a lot of people don't know that.
no, I understand.
But the thing is like you got to figure out, and that just goes like, okay, I want to shoot this way. Like this is the type of photographer I want to be. I want to be a street photographer who just runs and guns right from the hip. I want to always be ready. And then you gravitate towards the focal lengths and the apertures that allow you to shoot that way.
Right.
And so then a style starts to develop, you know? So you gotta like kind of understand yourself as a photographer. Like me personally, at a wedding, I like to shoot wide and close. Okay. Rarely am I like really far away from my clients, even on the ceremony. Like I get really close.
Right. I know.
Yeah, you've seen it plenty of times.
You're in my shots all the time.
I'm pissing off videographers from day one. So, but that allowed because I like to shoot wide and close, I had to figure out focal lengths, apertures, and lighting that allowed me to do that and still get good pictures. Right. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I let the focal lengths determine how I was going to shoot. I wanted to shoot a certain way, and then I found the focal lengths and the angles and the lighting and the apertures that allowed me to shoot how I wanted.
I guess that's what I was getting at with him shooting from the hip would be like, you know, maybe he found he liked to do that and then found the 20.
That's what I guarantee that was his process. I guarantee that's his process. He went through every single focal length, every single type of camera, every way to shoot, and nothing felt right until he landed on that, because then instinctually that's how he is best suited to shoot. Mm-hmm. And then that setup, 28, deep aperture, whatever, zone focusing, gave him the ability to shoot how he wanted. So then the style naturally emerges.
Right.
But like, you can't just like, you know, randomly pick a lens.
Right.
Dude, I'm not that good with an 85.
See, I went through a phase with the 85. I shot like almost everything I could shoot with the 85. I shot with the 85, and it was heavy, and it was, in hindsight, like just clunky and not, you know, I got freaking pain in my forearm all the time after I'm holding it up all the time. But I went through a phase where I was like, I didn't take that lens off my camera, and a part of it was that 1.2 phase where I'm like, oh, everything looks so
dreamy.
Well, because it's so easy,
Nothing's
right?
in focus.
Yeah, it almost made everything look good, which like
it's a cheat code. It's a little bit of a cheat code. Backlight a subject with and shoot an 85 at them. You can't take a bad photo.
Yeah. So now I'm pretty much 15 to 35 and 70 to 200. So I get kind of the drastic ends of the spectrum.
But yeah, like my style, dude, when I shoot with an 85, I'm filling the frame too much because I'm used to being close to my subjects. So I don't naturally like to stand that far back. And so when I shoot with an 85, I'm like, just by like my unconscious, I'm getting a little too close. So the photos just don't look great all the time with the 85.
I could see from a wedding standpoint, but, you know, again, a lot of studio work that I do, I can control the situation a lot more.
Yeah. But I've worked with people like Sarah, for instance. She was awesome with an 85, amazing with it. And she was just always taking shots that were good with the 85. And like, I would put it on my camera and I really had to fucking work.
Yeah.
You know, but give me a 24 to 70 or, you know, 35 down to a 24 or a 20 even. I'm going to get fire shots, dude, because I'm close to people. I know how to frame it. That's just my style. That's just what I'm naturally used to. So like, you gotta put some years and some mileage on some lenses to figure that out.
Yep.
You know?
And then, to really figure out which one you're most comfortable with and which one you like the look of. They may not be the same one. You know what I mean? You may find yourself like, you're always close to a subject. You like being the immerse yourself in the scenario guy. And I like that with like nightclub stuff, but I did a lot of concerts and you're never that close. So I used to, you know, if I shoot wide, I'm getting the pit. I'm getting like just a PA system. I'm getting a bunch of nonsense. So that's where I fell in love with the 85, is being like in a photo pit on a big stage and being able to, you know, I just isolate a subject, like I said, that you don't normally get close to. Mm-hmm. That's the irony, but like you don't normally see this person up close. So I like to do that with concerts. That's why I fell in love with the 70 to 200. But Danny had a 300 mil prime that was just like you know, like you'd see a sports, like a guy in the NFL photographer have
Yeah.
or whatever. And I took that one to a concert and I just had so much fun with it.
They're cool, but like even when I see really zoomed in shots like that, they're very hard to make interesting because they're just one thing.
You need that interesting subject, which like a rock star is. And you need that interesting moment. Yeah, I just find like the sweat dripping down, like,
That's
it is
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's not like,
You
you're not
can
going to
get
hang it in the museum,
expressions.
but like,
You can get expressions, you know,
Yeah.
but sports photography, like, it's very difficult for me to find a sports photography picture that I think is super interesting. Most of it's just documenting stuff.
correct. That's why the Olympics are so cool because you see the best of the best. It's like, to me, I'm like, oh, photography is like an Olympic sport now because I get to see what everyone comes up with to be different.
You know who's an amazing sports photographer is Adam Pretty.
Yeah.
You know him?
Yeah, I've seen his work.
Dude, he's fucking amazing. Amazing, dude. But a lot of his stuff's wide.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff is
Yeah.
wide.
Well, you gotta. It's very interesting. Like those photos from the Olympics, the last ones, and all of them generally. But the sports photography that comes out of there is just insane.
incredible.
You always get one or two photos that just, I don't want to say break the internet, but it's just like, you know,
They're incredible.
I've seen pictures of like swimmers that are just like, oh my god, they got that one moment where, you know, he's not breaking the top of the tension of the water, and it's
Yeah.
just like and all of a sudden it goes viral or whatever because you don't see that normally.
Right.
And then you said like people play with a lot of shadows and a lot of wide shots.
Adam does a lot of slow shutter speed stuff too with the athletes.
Yeah.
It looks really nice.
You got to be different because everyone can get a clean, sharp shot of these guys now. That's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
just like we talked, like the barrier to entry is so much lower that like that stuff's so easy now that you got to separate yourself by, you know,
Technique
doing
and
something else.
Focal lengths.
Focal lengths, you know,
Yeah.
techniques like that. A style is your best bet, which is the hardest thing to probably do. But
Yeah.
I have not a good friend, but I have a friend who shoots some really good sports photography work, and I'd love to have him in here someday that we can pick his brain or
What do
something.
you think, chat?
Yeah, you think we should bring
You guys
some
wanna
people
hear
in? Or,
Yeah. Well, I hope this conversation helped. Anything else you want to say on focal lengths or anything like that?
not really, but don't be scared to like rent a lens. They're fairly cheap to rent. Get used to something, see if you like it, get your feet wet.
Yeah, but then if you like it, then you have to buy it because it's going to take a year for you to actually.
Yeah, absolutely. But better than spending $2,000-$3,000 on a lens that you don't really like, or you only like because it was new.
Yeah.
It takes that out of the equation.
Right.
Takes the novelty out of buying one.
Definitely experiment, guys. Use your stuff and put the miles on it because you're not going to get it quick. At a high level, you're not going to get it quick.
Right.
So, all right. I hope this was informative to everybody. And until next week, Monochrome Mondays. Be kicking off next Monday.
Peace.
Later.